the president's written intelligence reports could be read as reinforcing what it was he wanted to believe,
Right.
which was these guys are still the JV and they're not as big a problem.
Right.
And since you didn't have the human exchange, you could never break that cycle.
Right. So you do see a danger in this style as opposed to the Bush style.
Right, right.
Yeah.
It opens you up. It opens you up to look. If you're telling the policymaker things that make him happy, two things should happen. Number one, the intel guy should red team his conclusions. And number two, the policy guy should actually push back against the intel guy's reasoning just to make sure he really knows what he's talking about.
That, of course, General Michael Hayden telling us what he thinks about the intelligence community relationship with the president. Welcome back to the show. I'm Rick Unger here with John Fund, my partner in crime today. Steve's off observing the Yom Kippur holidays. We're now joined by White House correspondent for the Daily Caller, Neil Munro. Neil, welcome to the show.
Delighted to be here.
So, Neil, you wrote an interesting piece that you entitled, "Obama has spent more time golfing than in Intel briefings." Now, we're probably not going to question the truth of that statement, but I do have a couple of questions regarding whether or not it's a fair comparison.
That's perfectly reasonable. I mean, what I base those numbers on is official statements from the White House. They aren't complete, but they show the scale of time that the president has played golf in comparison to the relatively short amount of time he's on the record face-to-face with intelligence officials.
And Neil, this is John Fund. Why in the world is it important to have actual face time with the intel officials and the intel operatives as opposed to just absorbing information through memos?
Right, because as General Hayden said, if you want to be skeptical, if you want to push back, if you want to be sure, you need to talk face-to-face. The president needs to have his happy assumptions questioned occasionally, and it's very difficult to do that online. It should be done face-to-face.
But that's not what was happening. I think we have to be fair about this. Set aside just for the moment that we know many other presidents, including Nixon and Reagan, who much preferred to get their briefings in writing as opposed to face-to-face. We do know that the president did meet with those briefers roughly 3 out of every 7 days. So if he's following what's going on by reading the briefing memos, why would he not be able to, get that interaction and get anything that's on his mind answered, meeting 3 times a week?
Well, look, that's a perfectly reasonable point. It's clear that the president decided that about 3 times a week is enough, and he's the president, so he gets to decide these things. It is also perfectly clear that the president has made many decisions that were wrong, and given what White House officials say, it's pretty clear the president doesn't like he's been told that he's wrong. He got, for example, got the whole Libyan operation wrong, and they've gone to great efforts to hush it up and pretend it's some other problem. So we know there's a problem, and the president should recognize the problem. In fact, the president himself admitted his Libya policy was a failure. So the president
Neil,
should be paid attention.
What we have is the president getting the intel briefings, the president making decisions, some of which were not the best decisions. Then on 60 Minutes last week, the president decided, well, the intelligence community got this wrong, and he used them rather than we, absolving himself of responsibility, it appeared to some people. Is this setting up the president for slow drip leaks and acidic attacks on him through the newspapers? Because I'll tell you, if I were in the intelligence community and the president threw me under the bus, I'd find a way to leak and get back at him.
Yes, and that's a notorious problem. There's been multiple episodes in the past where the intelligence guys leak and can do great damage to the presidency. During the Bush era, for example, the CIA people even allowed each other to go on the record in public and criticize the president. So in this case, by dissing and insulting the intelligence guys, the president is setting himself up for a major problem. And that, by the way, is what's precisely happened during this fight over the Secret Service. It's clear the Secret Service guys were very unhappy with the boss, and they started leaking. And this has been damaging to the presidency. The president...
But Neil, I want to bring you back to the point here. And by the way, I have some sympathy for the point that John made. I didn't think it was a great idea for the president to lay this at the feet of the intelligence community, as he did during 60 Minutes. A leader, buck stops with him, and that's probably the way it should have stayed. That being the case, though, I noticed you started going off on a conversation about how we behaved in Libya. I kind of want to stick to it. I think I heard you agree that it's perfectly reasonable that the president might make the decision to read his daily memos and save any questions that aren't pressing or any inflections he wants to get for that 3 times a week he meets. So if that's the case, why the criticism in your magazine about him spending more time on the golf course than the briefings?
I didn't say it was reasonable. I said he has the authority to do it, and he absolutely has the authority to do it.
I thought I heard you say that it wasn't an unreasonable point.
But the problem is the president has also acknowledged that he's made significant mistakes in the area. So he goes into Libya in 2010, and he discovers by 2012...
You think it would have been different if he had sat in a briefing?
That he discovered by 2012 that his whole policy is a mess. You would think that would tell him, I need to listen more carefully here. I need to push back. Similarly, he was surprised by what happened in Egypt. He was surprised by what happened in Jordan. He should no longer be surprised when he's surprised. He should be spending more time.
Because and you're putting that down to the fact that he doesn't have that morning face-to-face. You're not blaming it on maybe he has the wrong choice of a national security advisor, or maybe the people he's chosen haven't been the people you might prefer to do a better job for him. You think it's because of these briefings.
Aha, but you see, I'm being careful. I merely pointed out that he's spending comparatively little time in these briefings compared to...
So Neil, I gotta end this, Neil, but I appreciate you. I appreciate you joining us. Listen, we're going to be right back with the Malzberg panel after the break. But first, did you know you can reduce your estate taxes by gifting from your estate? Here to tell you about his tax advisor, Michael Daskell.
It's better to give than to receive, so they say. But when it comes to your taxes, giving or gifting could save you money down the road.
The benefits of annual gifting is you get some money out of your estate systematically every year. You can give $14,000 to a child, or if you're married, you can give $28,000 per person. But more important than getting money out of your estate, I think it's important while you're young and healthy to help your kids, whether you can improve their lifestyle, help them with education, you can help them buy a new house, you can help them pay for health care, you can fund education for grandkids.
Gifting to family members involves tough decisions about when, how, and in what form to gift. Before doing so, talk with your attorney and your accountant. I'm Karina Brez.
Get more money news at Newsmax.
The Pentagon says 4,000 U.S. troops are needed to combat Ebola overseas. I'm Francesca Page, and the story tops your Newsmax Now update. Rear Admiral John Kirby says additional soldiers will be deployed to provide medical support, but Kirby says military personnel will not be used to treat Ebola patients. Meanwhile, the White House says they will not issue travel bans to West Africa. The Obama administration says security measures at overseas airports are secure, even though a Liberian man brought the virus to Texas. The mother of the cameraman infected with the virus says her son is trying to stay positive. The Rhode Island native contracted the disease while working in Liberia. Alaska, Arkansas, and Louisiana may be ready to vote out Democratic incumbents. However, the polls are way too close to call just yet. That's your Newsmax Now update. More coming your way in 30 minutes. I'm Francesca Page.